Sign is from the other.
At some point, Peggy will just move them all around, discuss with us.
Trying to figure out what everybody wanted. Well, it's 5 o'clock. We can get moving with the Village of Oregon Park Board meeting for October 14th. So let's call the meeting to order. So go through roll call. Item 2.
Frisch. Here. McDaniel.
Here.
Roddy.
Here.
Herman.
Present.
Knutson. Here. Miller.
Present.
And Lees.
Here.
All right, thank you.
Excellent, thank you all. We're going to move the agenda items around a little bit. We're going to offer up the public appearances first. There's some comments, and we may want to look at the approval of the minutes, so we'd like to get some of that feedback. So if you come forward, state your name and your address, and clearly so Peggy can understand.
Hello, everybody. My name is Mike Barone, 631 Bergamot Boulevard here in Oregon. Longtime resident of the village. My wife and I have been here roughly 29 years and seen and been through a lot. Thank you for indulging me, Peggy and Mark, with my comments. It'll be brief. I just wanted to take the opportunity, I was looking at the agenda for today and the meeting minutes that you're about to approve. And I wanted to add some clarity to page 5 of 6, which is around the Friends of Oregon Pickleball. The first point of clarity that I want to mention is the Friends of Oregon Pickleball is not an organization. It's not an entity. We are nothing more than a bank account. We don't charge membership, we don't have dues, we don't have fees. But if you think back when we were talking about pickleball in the park project and we were in front of the village board, we kept getting feedback we needed to raise money. And when Jerome Klein, who was behind me, and I were leading this up, we went over to one community bank, and their suggestion was just give yourself a name, and this is the repository for any money you have for the fundraising. So the point in here is that, that talks about a sanctioned group. I'm not really sure what that means, but I just wanted to clarify, we are not a group at all. We are nothing more than a bank account. The other thing I wanted to clarify was around the community play days and evenings. And I want to go backwards a little bit to give you the history, because as I look around, even Leanne wasn't here when this all started. I want to go back to, it was around 2016, maybe 17, that a group of us, Jerome Klein, Deanne Klein, my wife Colleen, and some others, approached the park board. We came back from the West Coast. We approached the park board and said, hey, there's this great game called pickleball. If we do the labor and we pay for the material, are you willing to allow us to put the lines on the Oak Street courts, which were the tennis courts? The park board said, yes, you can do that. We had to go in front of the village board, which we did. The village board gave us their blessing. We went out and spent the money. A bunch of us laid out the lines, and we set it up. At the same time, Amy Miller, who was the director of Community Ed and Recreation, said, look, if you guys are going to do all that, I will support you for community education, for community play. And she came to the village board meeting with us when we were getting the approval, and she told the village board that if these guys are willing to spend the money and the time to put in the lines, she will, under her budget, buy the nets, the balls, and the paddles. And that was the beginning of community play. She came up with the brainchild that, look, we're going to do this. It's for the betterment of the community. She got with the village, and I don't remember who it was, Leanne, before you, but she got with the village and said, okay, we're going to do this on Tuesday and Thursday evenings from 5 o'clock until dark. The village said, okay, not a problem. They set it up, and we started playing. We had a group of women who was playing at night. They felt they would be better suited to play in the morning, so they approached Amy and myself, and they said, look, we would like to do the same thing in the morning. So Amy was able to work with the village and set it up for the morning, Monday through Friday from 7:30 to 10. Now, let's fast forward. 2023, we got the new courts. They're dedicated. They're the best courts in Dane County. The people are starting to play. In the evening, where we had Tuesday and Thursday, we were starting to get players that were coming out. We had 40 or 50 a night that were coming out. So when Amy moved on to her next job, Alex Marks, who took over for Amy, and I were talking, and we suggested that we expand community play night. Okay, so me, on behalf of Alex, I contacted Leanne, and this was probably a year ago, maybe, Leanne? Yeah. Contacted her and said, look, we would like to expand community play night from Tuesday and Thursday to Monday through Friday, from 5 until dark. We also would like to take the mornings and expand that to every morning from 7:30 to 10 o'clock. Now, the logical question you should ask is why did you want to do that? Well, it was a very simple reason. The way the rules were set up with the village board way back when we opened the courts up in '23, people could reserve courts, up to 3 of the 6 courts at any time, except during village functions or except during community play. And this became important because when we were having 30, 40, 50 people out for community play, if 2 people came out and reserved 2 courts, that took 2 courts out of the rotation. So we did this for the betterment of the community, for the citizens, so everybody could play and rotate through the courts on a very quick basis. But again, this was community ed and recreation that is reserved the courts, not FOOP, not the Friends of Oregon Pickleball. They've done it for the community, just like we've been doing since 2016. So I think that's a real important clarification as I look at the meeting notes. FOOP does not reserve courts. FOOP has not. The only time we have reserved court, which is the third point, and Elise, I think you mentioned this in here, was when we have done tournaments. We have done fundraising tournaments the last couple summers, and 2 summers ago it was a fundraiser during Summerfest, and this past summer we did it after Summerfest. But we did reserve the courts for the day, and Leanne was kind enough to give those to us. But we reserved them strictly as a fundraising activity. Even though we didn't have a particular goal in sight, we have been continuing to raise money for the improvement, for the betterment of the courts. So that is really the only time that FOOP has reserved anything. The other has been community ed. And I wanted to get that out there for everybody to understand and know and get that into the meeting minutes for the future. Any questions, comments?
Really, we don't do much comments back from a public portion of that, but we can take this in advisement, and when we get to the meeting, the minutes, then we can look at that and how we may want to change that. If you're okay, then we could call back to see if you could help us, if there's some corrections that we would want, and we'll go into that.
That would be great. I mean, that's my only request, is that we try to get the corrections in there and
Okay.
for posterity.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like a public comment? Hearing none, then we'll move on to, back to item 3, which is the approval of meeting minutes. So as we had heard, there was some comments. Looking for any comments, corrections within the meeting minutes? Is there some way that we should correct these meeting minutes relative to what Mr. Barone had talked about? Because there was a question if there was a sanctioning organization.
Also, I believe the minutes are, I believe my name is misspelled with 2 C's
Okay,
in the minutes, in the
All
roll
right.
call.
that looks right. So we'll correct that. Thank you for bringing that forward, appreciate that.
Mark, I guess a comment
Yes.
related to the public comment that was made. I'm not sure if we really need to make a change to the minutes or not, but I don't know that we ever really, because we haven't decided what direction we're gonna go with our fee structure. We never really had a definition defined for a sanctioned group. I think a sanctioned group, based on what other communities have, is more like a verified 501c3. It's an established organization that's in that community, that kind of a thing, but I don't think we ever really went down the definition, so it looks like it was just a point of clarification, is FOOP a sanctioned group? We don't really know what a sanctioned group is yet, so
Yes,
I think
that's
it's
true.
just an open-ended question. I do know, with the pickleball courts, the reservations we see on our end, they are from individual members who are, well, they're not associated with FOOP, they're individual people associated with the community play. It's not community ed and rec from the school district who's making the reservations for community play. It's individual people, I guess, making it kind of on behalf of the community play. So that's just what we see on our end as far as who's contacting the village to
Okay.
reserve those.
So it is individuals that are coming into it, it's not another organization, okay. Very good. I tend to agree that I don't think there's a need for changing any meeting minutes, it's just record of what we had talked about, but I would appreciate Mr. Berlin's clarification. What does the park board think?
I was gonna echo both of those points,
Okay,
that I agree with you.
okay,
And this will be as part of the record of these minutes, so.
okay, part of this meeting. All right, want to call for approval?
Yeah, I'll move to approve as amended.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Nico, thank you. Is there any further discussion in regards to the approval of the meeting minutes? Hearing none, we'll call for approval. All in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Very good. Thank you, Mr. Barone. Appreciate the clarification. Moving on to item 5, reports to the village staff. 5A, Director of Public Works report. That's you, Lon?
Yes, and I'll try to keep it brief. This is not an item that requires any particular action. The history here is that, as this board knows well, we are in budget season, and as part of that, the village board and many of the peripheral committees and boards here are kind of weighing priorities and what they would like to see in the budget, what the trade-offs are, and just trying to get their heads around all of these bigger questions. And one of the items that has been in the budget for a while as a planned item is a new parks crew person. It is a new position, so that's a significant impact to the budget, I would say. And there were some questions, concerns expressed about it at a village board meeting. And so we, as a department, kind of put together just a purely objective history of what this position is, why it was in the plan back to about 2023, what it would do for the department and the village. And we did present that to the Public Works Committee. Of course, this is one of those fuzzy areas that touches both Park Board and Public Works Committee jurisdiction. And so at the request of those committee members, we did place this memo as purely informational in the village board packet for the following meeting. And we have put it here in this packet for this committee or this board to kind of consider, ask any questions. Like I said, no action is necessary, but it's just to kind of raise the subject and get you guys thinking about it and make sure you're in the loop.
Questions, thoughts from the park board?
I think it's a great idea, because I love seeing money spent on the parks that we have and the upkeep, so. That's it.
So I totally agree. Just a couple of questions, just to understand. So I think having additional full-time staff member would be great for continuity in that. But if we consider, particularly for snow removal, like contract options and that, because you add a full-time employee, right? You have that overhead year after year. If it's a light snow year like it's been the last couple, maybe you don't need as much. I don't know. I just want to ask that, I guess.
That's a fabulous question, especially at this exact point in time. So part of what the Public Works Department and the Public Works Committee have been tasked with over probably about the next 6 months is going through every service that the department offers and outlining what we offer, what level we're currently operating at, and should we be there? Should we be adjusting that? Do we want to expand that? Probably not, but how do we really zero in on what matters to the community? And the first topic that we're going after, because of its relevance coming up, is snow removal. So I've been working with Nick Hack, our assistant director, who's really the expert in this area, manages those operations, and at the October Public Works Committee meeting here, we'll bring kind of a first opening draft of thoughts about what our existing policy is. Are we complying with that? Where have we deviated? Where have we not? If we were to want to cut back a little bit, you know, where would we want to make those and what would those ramifications be? So it's a great question, it's a big question, and it's one that we'll be getting into absolutely starting this month, and we'll have hopefully a little bit more guidance going forward.
Awesome, thank you.
Yes, Lynn?
I just wanted to provide also a little bit of context for those of you who are maybe wondering why the village board brought this up. Because I was one of those vocal members that questioned this a bit. I won't hesitate to admit that. As you all know, or hopefully you know at this point, our operating budget is very, very tight. And we went to referendum last year and that did not pass. And so we have an excruciatingly tight margin, and we are tasking our current staff with a lot of things. And so in the discussion at the village board level, there was a discussion about this position in addition to two other positions, an HR position and an economic development position. And so the village board spent some time having a discussion about where we prioritized those three, because any added position is a lot of overhead. It's a lot to put on our operating budget. And I can say that from the last couple of budget meetings that we've had, seems as if we are going to table the HR and economic development positions simply because they are more and we don't have the space in the budget to do that. Assuming nothing dramatic changes, I think that the village board is comfortable with this added position. But just to give a little bit of context as to why it was even discussed, adding positions is obviously a difficult thing for the village board to do, and we just always want to make sure that what we're adding or considering is beneficial. I mean, it's always beneficial, but most beneficial in the long run. So just a little context for you all.
Other comments?
I just had one question. So with the addition of this full-time employee, would that relieve what is expected of the athletic programs in regards to like assisting public works and facility with the readiness and maintenance of the fields? Like in the future, thinking about it as like the fee structure for 2026.
Yeah, that's a great question, and one that I'll kind of kick to Eric. You know, I know that we have a lot of needs on just the current maintenance, but this will really kind of be how he defines it.
Yeah, so I think, you know, obviously this is my first year. I think it's still something that we have to go through a year with that person and see what we're able to do and not do. You know, sports like soccer are mostly played outside of that window where we have that summer staff. So even if it comes to painting fields, and as we're adding another one with Dish Park that we would paint, it's a lot of time. And even having a second person, a lot of that is just to maintain all the other parks in the village that have to be mowed. If you have a year like this year where we're finally just starting to get caught up on a lot of our mowing since the summer staff left. But I think that's something that we need to kind of factor into that conversation of fees and what are we gonna charge because what's expected of us. And right now, I'd say more on the baseball end, I think we could probably handle a lot of the extra tasks for baseball field lining, and because we have the staff, the summer staff there to kind of take care of the other parks while we do that. But starting to get into soccer painting when we don't have that summer staff could be a difficult task for us.
Other comments?
Has anybody talked about part-time, getting 2 part-time instead of a full-time? Because you're saving all the money on benefits and things like that. For mowing and all, whatever they need to do.
I can take that one. We have talked about that, and it's actually been in past years' budgets. Part of the reason that we haven't really pursued that is those roles are very hard to fill. You don't get a ton of people that are interested in a position that's part-time, that isn't just kind of summer help, that doesn't offer those benefits. So we've kind of looked at it and then stepped away from it a little bit, even in the past couple of years, moving more towards prioritizing that summer help, simply because we haven't had any luck recruiting for those jobs.
I think likewise, I've listened to some people, when we're looking for a volunteer, oftentimes it takes somebody to lead that, takes as much time as it does you get for a volunteer, and partially the quality that they produce. The village has moved by taking all of these parks under their wing just in the last couple of years, and the J.C. Park brought in a lot of that into it. That introduction ended up with having improve the quality of that needs to be maintained, and that just melded into all of the other ones. Knowing how soccer was doing it before, it was all volunteers taking care of the lawns, putting all the lines on it. I knew the people that were out there painting and cleaning them up, saw them all the time, and so they were out there. So that transition is really moving away. So this introduction to raising the bar of what we do have in the fields themselves and in the village taking it on is something that comes into a bigger burden. And if we move in that direction, we need to be able to fill that in. So it would have been nice if we would have anticipated that and had a plan for that, realizing how, by bringing this in, because that very much was the school and volunteers were doing a lot of that. And so it does become something that does come into it. I just was really shocked when I learned about that staffing, and somebody like even in the city of Madison, is all based around snow removal. So very much the snow removal dictates the number of people that they end up having, and then what they do with that people is they do other things in the off season. I was really surprised by that. I thought the snow was just something else, but it's a very different plan overall. So having the snow removal, and it's hard to tell. You know, as many of these private companies don't know how much snow they will have and how much business they will have, or if they're enough to be able to do it all. But so it does change the village, and so I recognize that overall. So I appreciate you bringing that to the park board. I think it is important for the park board to realize that as we bring this in and we end up looking at fees, we end up looking at providing fields and facilities for the community, that it does change the outlook of what the village needs to sustain. So any other comments from the park board? Since there isn't any action in particular, I do appreciate bringing that forward. So thank you for that information. So we'll move on to 5B, Director of Community Development Reports. Item 1 was the Dish Park.
All right, just providing an update here, and then have a few, just an opportunity for you all to provide feedback as we move through design. So about half of you were at a neighborhood meeting we hosted a few weeks ago, September 23rd, in the community room with neighbors. So thank you for those that attended and were flies on the wall. It was, I think, pretty well attended for a weeknight. I think we had maybe 15, 20 neighbors attending, but and a couple of little ones too, which was fun. So we had a lot of discussion about parking and traffic and different amenities of the park. Obviously, there's a lot of grade change out here too, so that's a huge element, accessibility and sort of handling the grade change out here. So hopefully everybody left with a better understanding of what to expect, schedule, that kind of thing. One of the key elements of the neighborhood input session was looking at the playground. So there were 3 different concepts, not this one, but other ones that we had folks put stickers on. What are your favorite elements? What pieces do you like? And then we also had 3 different color schemes. So we had people vote for their favorite color scheme. So this is sort of a compilation of all those comments, both on colors and the elements of the playground themselves. So this is what we received back last week from Lee Recreation, who's a playground contractor we've worked with in Highlands and Netherwood and JC Community Park, and they primarily use this Burke playground equipment manufactured here in Wisconsin too, which is awesome. So we'll likely end up specifying one of their playground sets and other, accessories in the bid package. But this is a combination of two color schemes that were more of like earth tone and then a lot of bright blue. So we sort of mixed them together to make it a little less bright. And then a lot of the feedback was about just making sure there was playground elements here that could be used by younger kids, not just, there's sort of, I think like 2 to 5 is one age bracket and then 5 to 12. So everything was kind of leaning more towards the older kids. So they added some lower slides. There's some infant swings. There's a little picnic table and a storefront similar to what we have over at JC Community Park with those pieces. And then some new stuff that we don't have anywhere else in our park. So like that climber sort of spider web looking piece in the back. There's a little spinner. Laura, maybe you can kind of point that out where the guy is staring at the child there. So it was one child's spinner. They thought this was pretty cool. We actually did this morning have a call with Rattler to talk through the updated design documents, and they were asking us for our feedback here. So could you scroll down just a little bit and show that little piece that we were discussing? So the piece that is kind of in the foreground there, it's more like fine motor skills, so little sliders or like a tic-tac-toe thing or something like that. That piece itself is around $6,000, and we just kind of talked about, is that really adding anything? Would it be better to have more space to sort of run around and play tag and maybe have an opportunity to do other things with the surface or something like that. So we might, unless you all feel strongly, we might just continue to recommend that we remove that, and we definitely have some extras room maybe in the budget to add some other things, which I'll talk about and ask for your feedback on. We're also still discussing the surface here, so either of these surfaces would be ADA accessible, but what they're showing here is artificial turf. We don't have that in any of our other parks, but is actually, according to Rattler and Lee Recreation, holds up better over time than pour in place, that rubberized surfacing that we have at Highlands and at JC Community Park. So there's still a foam underneath and sand that it meets all the same fall impact, safety type requirements. It's not quite as bouncy as the pour in place, but still, again, you can roll across it with a wheelchair, walker, stroller, things like that. There's a couple different, turf options. So our public works team is taking a look at that. We're going to try to see if we can go visit some sites in the area that have the turf installed, so we could actually feel it and see it and talk to the folks that maybe have been maintaining it for a few years. So the jury's still out, pour in place versus turf, but I think it'll probably end up being more of a operations recommendation. And the turf actually can be kind of whatever color you want it to be too. So they're just showing green right now. But so wanted to show you where the playground was. There are a couple things we'll probably end up, when we do the bidding, which will probably happen between like Thanksgiving and Christmas, do as alternates just to see what prices we get back on them. But there's no, you can kind of zoom out here, there's no shade structure at the moment with this, and maybe like the site plan, I don't know, you can kind of see, there's a walkway and a viewing area for spectators if they didn't want to go all the way down to the field. Yeah, maybe that one, if you zoom in, the one above it there, yeah, the site plan. So that exterior kind of loop around the playground area would be concrete, so that would be an area if it'd be accessible, as well as if people wanted to just have a bird's eye view of the field and see what's going on down there, or watch folks in the playground. No shade, so there's definitely more economical versions of shade structures than what we did at like Highlands of Netherwood. Actually has a metal kind of a square shaped structure. Those are pretty expensive. He said probably $50,000 to $60,000 for a structure like that. So there's other fabric sale type things we could do. There's also maybe looking at doing a drinking fountain with a bottle filler and things like that too. So we'd want to get prices on that. And they asked, if we could have one or the other, what would we want? We want both. We don't have to have everything, but we'll see where the prices come back. So if you have any strong opinions about that, I'd love to hear it. And then just again, kind of where the playground's headed. the last thing I just wanted to talk about was on, I think it's on this page too, the netting kind of fencing discussion. So I think it's on page 19 of the, of the packet. So it's shown with kind of the X around the south and the eastern side of the field. So one thing you all mentioned, I think a month or two ago when we brought the revised plans up here, was the potential for balls to go towards either Wolf Street or down towards the pond and trying to keep them sort of contained. So right now, I think with where the direction Rattler's going is proposing to get prices on like a 4-foot fence that would keep the majority of balls contained. Obviously, it's possible somebody could kick a ball higher over the goal. We could do netting and things like that. Again, that gets pretty expensive. So just trying to decide to what extent do we want to try to prevent balls from rolling down into the pond or into the road. But there will be landscaping and things on that side too. So some barriers to help with that. But we'll have to kind of see where the pricing comes back. But I think those were kind of the main updates. There's a little, I wonder if you could just scroll to the west a little bit, that like footpath. You can see it too on the grading plan, but where it's sort of that hashed path that's going to be just grass, but will be graded. So that's sort of the path of least resistance, the least steep path to get down to the field. So if you're a player, coach, a spectator, there'll kind of be a clear path in the grass to get down there. The neighborhood did ask about the ability to potentially put in a path down there, because we don't have ADA accessibility all the way down to the kind of lower main level with the field and everything. We didn't feel like making the investment in a path that's accessible is, you know, it's not consistent with our comp plan. We would certainly, if we're going to put in any kind of pathway, we want to make sure that it's accessible. So potentially when this section of Wolf Street gets redone, maybe there's an opportunity to see with the sidewalk and everything if there's any other pathways that could be added at that time, but that's still a few years out till we get to that project with the county. So I think that's the main updates on Gary Dish Park. So any feedback, we'd love to hear it. We can pass it back to Rattler, and then November we should have kind of the final set of plans for you all to see before we get that to the village board and then out to bid around Thanksgiving.
Comments? Lynn?
I have a couple. So first, to go to the playground, I really liked it. My kids are obsessed with anything that spins, which makes no sense to me, but they love those things that spin. And the first thing I thought of when I saw the singular spinner is how many fights I'm gonna have to break up, because anything that is just one child, my kids don't do very well with. Now, that's just my family. We shouldn't design parks or playgrounds around my family. However, I don't know that I am the only one. And so okay, we're feeling it, got it. So I like that you brought up the fine motor piece. That didn't strike me as anything that was like particularly important to me. And I wonder if in that space we could look at one of those. We have them at a number of parks, the big spinner thing.
Yeah, that has kind of the
That's cool.
Yeah, they like
lower
those.
areas
And
for
maybe
seating.
having both, so that a kid who wants to have that sensory experience on their own, at their own speed, I totally want to recognize and honor that. But maybe something also larger that then everyone can go to and get themselves nauseous on might be somewhat useful. I don't know, just a thought.
Yeah, I did have that same thought too. I will say those do take up quite a bit of room, and
Yeah.
they're very expensive. So I
Okay.
guess it's kind of a decision. I mean, probably more similar to like the climber structure that we have there. Like, would we rather have a spinner? Would we rather have something like that? You know, a group spinner. So
Yeah,
one thing we just were thinking is, what's equipment that we don't have elsewhere in the village?
yes,
try
and I
something
think that that's super valuable. I don't know if there's something in the middle. Maybe there's something that's not just an individual, a little bit bigger, but not as big as those large ones. I don't know. I don't know enough. The other thing that I heard from a neighbor that I thought was really interesting and I think would be helpful in making the decisions on some of the sunshades or fences is that a neighbor mentioned to me that this is a space that is like very unprotected from wind and elements. their mailboxes are right next to this, and he said when he gets his mail out, he has to like hover over the mailbox so that they don't blow away. So to me, I think something like a fence makes more sense than the screens, just because if you've got a lot of wind blowing throughout the year, I don't know how well that holds up, whereas maybe more of just a fence is more durable for some of those elements. And then my last comment isn't actually a part of the park, but I mentioned this to you, Elise, and I just want to put it in the record. The neighborhood is also really interested in getting a crosswalk, probably at the north end of that parking lot, so that it's very clear where they want people to cross the street. When you come out of those parking spots, you have to watch not only the cul-de-sac Autumn Ridge Court, but also Ridgeview Lane. And the neighbors were nervous that if kids are walking right where your cursor is there, Lauren, that it's too much to try and to see. And so by putting a delineated, like a clear painted crosswalk up there, they're helping people enter the park from that direction. So probably doesn't need to be on these plans because that's an entirely different crew that would do that. But I think it's important to note that we should think about kind of an entrance piece there so that people try and enter that way instead of at the bottom of the parking lot.
Nick?
I completely agree with all those points. First off, like the little thing on the side that has like the board, I don't think, thinking back to as my time as a child, I don't know if I've ever used those for more than about like 5 seconds as a child. I agree with the point that I don't think it's worth the $6,000. Secondly, I walk down past this park very often because it's very close to my house and I like to go on walks. I completely agree that a crosswalk there would be good for like kids walking through.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, just a quick thing. Is there any sort of like barrier or fence outside of the ball catcher, for lack of a better term, on that, like around the playground area for this or no?
No, not at this time. So it would just be the kind of concrete.
Gotcha. Well,
Path around it.
I'll make a comment then. I just want to kind of put this on the record. It's something I've looked at all the parks, and I've been so impressed with the ADA compliance in that across our park system. It's just amazing. Nothing like I've seen anywhere. So that's good. But it is a parent of 2 autistic children. I know many other in the community. Eloping can be a problem, right? Meaning they just run off, for lack of a better term, right? So what I've noticed is, particularly like Highlands and Netherwood and others, there's like a retention pond, right? That's dangerous. So we're constantly chasing the kids, right? Just to redirect them back. So for consideration, it's like a low barrier just to slow them down. I think could be good for many parents. I'm using my kids as an example, of course, but I know there's many autistic families in the community, and it may be good to have at least some fencing in a couple of the parks for an option for them. So just throw that out there.
Other comments?
I'm thinking about benches for the grandmas and the moms and dads.
I know one thing Rutler was mentioning this morning with the shade structure is depending on if that's a direction we go and how that's designed, there could be some seating kind of integrated with that. So maybe something like a low wall that sort of functions as a barrier as well as could be seating and is shaded. Again, it's just value engineering. What does that cost and where does it go and what are other things that we're getting up? We have a pretty hefty playground budget. I think it's $275,000 for this, including installation and the surfacing and everything like that. The surfacing pretty much costs the same as the playground equipment itself. So
Well, the
anyway,
only thing with
but
benches, what I was talking about with the benches, even if we can't afford that now, I know the community, because I donated 2 of the benches for my daughter when she passed away. And maybe we would want to do that, but do you want them to match or do you want them to?
yeah, we
you know,
definitely
what
have
do you
that
want?
program we've done in several parks.
I do have one follow-up, sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
As far as the turf, so I'll use JC Park. That is the rubberized stuff you're talking about.
Correct.
That's great, by the way, for whatever it's worth. But the turf, like the AstroTurf that was shown, if we compare the wear and tear, or basically the lifespan of that versus the rubber and or the cost, you know what I mean? Like if we balance the 2 things out, is one just better and more expensive, or is it going to last longer? Like what's the benefit or detractors of both? Question.
So that's kind of our question right now. This is something that Lee and Rattler have proposed, this turf over foam option. They claim that they have seen fewer callbacks, fewer needs for repair, that it does last longer. We don't have a ton of experience internally with it. All that we can speak to is our experience with the pour-in-place. And so that's one of our big questions for them before we make any kind of decisions on going one way or another. We have asked them to come up with some example places in Madison that have this kind of turf surfacing so that Eric and Nick and our ops section can go up, look at it, talk to the people that maintain it, talk to the people that use it, and get a sense of how it does hold up, how people like to work on it, all of that stuff. So it's something that we're looking into, and we don't have more information now, but we hopefully will at the next meeting once we have a chance to explore that.
As far as price, I believe they've said they're fairly similar in price.
Yep.
Other comments?
Andy wants to say something.
Certainly. Come on forward.
I think this is still on.
Yes, it is.
Andy Weiland, 763 Ridgeview Lane. I was kind of a little bit disappointed because I think I'm 0.01% or 0.01 miles outside of your 0.25 mile radius. I would have loved to talk about this park. So a couple pieces of information that might be helpful. Forest Edge actually does have a turf playground field. It doesn't have cushion on it, but it's a significant sized field. It's a soccer field. It's been in place for 2 or 3 years. I think you're going down the right path as far as this. It does not have cushioning under it. It's just on ground, but it's been holding up well, no maintenance issues. Kids love it because, quite honestly, it was a muddy mess when we didn't have that there. So if you guys want to come up and look at it, please do. It doesn't have the cushion, but I think as we move into our next playground type components, that's the direction we're heading to, the same thing. The pour-in-place, we've been envious that you have it, but it's like $25 a square foot or something crazy like that. So we've tried different ideas, and I think this is the path we're going. So I was fortunate enough a year ago. I have a lot of different roles here. So I'm a resident of Ridgeview Lane and Ridgeview Estates. Also work as the school business manager, so that's how I know the Forest Edge component. The other thing for a couple of you might not know, I was actually in your seats a number of years ago as vice chair and with Judy. I don't know, how long ago was that?
Forever.
Yeah, forever. So I have some experience in that regard. One of the things that I actually got an invite to do is go to Washington DC a year ago and talk at a sustainability conference. Consider trees for shade. That's a huge component. It takes a while for them to develop, but you're gonna have maintenance issues with these types of structures and everything. And I heard a person talk very passionately about how trees, are a natural type thing. They get bigger over time rather than having to become a maintenance issue. You gotta mow around them. I know that people like yourself probably have to deal with that, but do consider that. The last thing I wanted to just say is, because when Judy and I were on the board together, it really was the impetus for what happened at J.C. Park over the last several years. Because we were having, I don't want to be critical, but in the past, when the Village of Oregon developed, there was never parking next to a lot of our parks. Now, you do have a little bit of parking by this, but if we're going to put a lot of money into that field, you're going to want to have a return on that, right? You're going to want to have more parking. So I think the residents probably expressed some concerns about that. So I thought I saw in the capital plan that we're talking like $750,000 for this park. And we've talked about $250,000 for the playground, which I totally support. Our neighborhood would love that. But I'm kind of doing some math and going, where's the other $500,000? And if it's going into the field, you're gonna probably spend $200,000 on that screening, because as somebody that spent quite a bit of money trying to shield baseballs from hitting soccer participants at J.C. Park East, those things are not cheap. They are very expensive. And honestly, to some degree, I wonder, knowing kids, if it almost becomes a little bit of a, hey, can I get the ball over the thing? So I don't know that I guess just give some thought to how much money you want to put into that field. Because I don't know that it's going to give you the return, and it's going to create a lot of maintenance issues for you in the future if you have some crazy netting system that's going to keep kids from kicking balls over the hill. So I'll just share that.
Thank you, Andy. Other comments?
Nicely said.
Mark, just a few other points. Thanks, Andy, for your comments. Regarding the trees, I know this will probably come up later, and this is shown in, I think, the survey plan, but there are a lot of new trees out here that have been planted with different programs, and there are a number of them, if the plans continue the way that they're going, that will need to be relocated, and so we talked a little bit about that today. We're gonna coordinate with our Public Works Department. Thankfully, they are smaller trees, and so I think we have a lot of locations that they can either be redistributed here later on in the project, or perhaps planted in other terrace areas, and then a landscaping design will come along with this park as well. So whether it's trees for shade and other, or screening, other things like that, that'll definitely be an element. But a lot of the trees that are existing on the west side of the park and the south end of the park, just due to grading and then the playground location, would have to be relocated. But I think it's definitely our plan to try to save them and replant them in other areas so that they continue to be healthy and grow. We talked back when the park board kind of talked about the expanded scope for Gary Dish Park. We did go into some detail about the change in the investment over here. It's basically bedrock, so the grass is not growing. It's an inch of topsoil on top of bedrock. So even the grass growing as it is, it's not a very usable field. So I don't know if you want to, maybe you could take a look at the minutes or the meeting, but hopefully that would be some helpful information to you about just, and it's an opportunity to have a larger playing field. Not all of our parks, of course, have this ability to have a full-size field, and this is kind of straddling that line between a neighborhood park and a community park. It's a lot bigger than a lot of our neighborhood parks, but it doesn't have, again, the full facilities of a restroom and a full parking lot that a community park would have. We definitely talked about parking and traffic and things like that with the neighborhood, and again, there is on-street parking that's available for public, and I know Lynn talked about, when you're there for a soccer event, you're usually not tailgating all afternoon, usually there for your game and in and out. I know that a lot of our sports organizations have been really understanding if there's some neighborhood event or somebody's hosting a baby shower and there's going to be a lot of traffic. Usually, as long as we know about that, the sports orgs have been really accommodating, and maybe they shift to a different field that particular day or something. And of course, this has always been intended as use as a park for a long time with the plan. So just kind of reminding the neighborhood that this has been the direction of this park. Obviously, if it is, more playable field, we'll probably see more traffic than had it just been left, fallow with this kind of patchy grass on top of bedrock. But that's not really a great investment or usable for the village either, if that grass is constantly dying and Eric's working on trying to keep it alive, and it's just right on top of bedrock here. So there's a lot of grading here as well. So that's a lot of what the money is going into, is adding topsoil for both the playground area to be able to anchor in the playground equipment into something that's not just bedrock, and then adding irrigation for this field as well so that the grass can grow. So adding some topsoil for the irrigation system, and then having the grass have some better substrate for that. So that's some of the background there. But yeah, I just wanted to mention the plan for the trees, because I'm sure some of you have been out there and actually planted the trees yourselves. So we're already thinking about the future for those too.
So one of the comments that some of the community asked about is the parking side of it. The park board has been presented oftentimes about parking in some of the neighborhood parks and when there's an event going on and what to do, even to the extent in some cases temporarily closing one of the lanes just to keep traffic moving forward. So that question did come up here. We did talk a little bit about this is not a primary field. Overall, this would still be an addition field, and we have other fields that would be primary. So lots of those cases, it's just going to be practice. So you're going to drop the kids off and you drive away and do something else like you're going to do with your other kids and then pick up the kids. So I think that I think there's some comfort in that aspect of it. We do have other places that other parks that people have complained about partially because the balls roll into their yards or they end up having to run through, the kids run through the yards. This space is kind of unique in the sense that the developer did flatten this all for us. And that was part of the question is like, if you're going to do this, can you make a flat surface? Because we need flat surfaces in order to do some of the events. I was like, yeah, I can, but it's going to be steep. And if you look at this contour line, you see how close these lines are. And it makes it very, very steep. And part of the Rentschler even talked about the fact that it's from the playground to the playing surface is very steep. It makes a really nice natural bleachers. So you can actually sit on that pretty nice. But likewise, those close lines also, what happens when you go south of the building, if you guys are contorted with that, where does it go? And that's why they looked at it and said, we really do need a fence because once that ball goes down there, it goes. And it'll go, and it'll go, and it goes down many, many feet. And so that's why we encourage that. Another comment somebody made about is there's going to be a walking path around there. It's like we really don't have any space for that. Trying to get the most space overall. So therefore you can still walk in the grass. You can still walk around that area. But there is some challenges, but I do think that they did a nice job in really putting this together overall. It's really unfortunate we have to invest so much just to keep grass growing, but do recognize that overall. So thank you for putting all of that together. Any other comments from the Park Board? Very good. We'll continue on with our agenda. Moving on to item 5C, so Recreation Programming Coordination Report.
Sure. So I have been helping out the Senior Center with their rebranding and logo design with the construction of the new facility. They thought this was a great opportunity to sort of explore possibly renaming, rebranding, and a new logo. A lot of senior centers in general are sort of deterring from the name Senior Center. It can have sort of a negative connotation in some places. And then also a lot of people just don't feel that they need the Senior Center, even those in their 80s and 90s. So they're just looking for something more, broad, like whether it's geographical, something of that nature. So they have put out a survey to the public. So from now until November 7th, it's on the Village Facebook page, Village website, Senior Center page, and there's also flyers hanging around town as well. It's a very short survey. I think it's only 4 or 5 questions. And they're just curious, what you think, if you currently use the Senior Center, what you think the new name and new brand should convey that it doesn't right now. And if you're unfamiliar and don't use the Senior Center, we'd love to know what sort of a name or vibe or energy would get you to go there.
So that was sent out by email as well, so?
Correct. I believe, yes, if you get
see that.
e-notify through the village, you would have gotten it as well.
Okay, very good. Anything from the Park Board members?
It's a good idea.
I think so
'Cause
too.
I'm almost like Senior Center age. It's like, not ready for that.
No.
But a new name.
Yes.
And just to clarify, everybody, even if you're not a senior, can do the
Correct.
survey, right? Even if you're not a
Absolutely.
Senior Center user or a senior
Mhm.
yourself. So it's about the whole facility with the community gymnasium being hopefully open to the public outside of those Senior Center hours. So we want to know.
So that is a great point, because I was just holding back, I'm like, man, we're doing a survey for the Senior Center with a QR code. I'm like, I don't know how that's.
There are paper copies
Yeah,
available.
I was holding back. No, to that point though, is the primary users of the Senior Center, are they getting this like direct, like in their face at the center? So like the people that really are using it and can
Basically,
spread the word? Okay.
yeah, and I feel as though they've been the most vocal about what is done at the senior center should not be defined as a senior center. You know what I mean? Like they see it as this wonderful, vibrant, healthy, mindful place, but when you think senior center, you don't necessarily think of those attributes.
Very good. Any other comments?
I was just gonna say, to that point, I think that's why they really want outside of the senior center to weigh in on this. One of the points that was brought up that I think I can relate to is, so if we have this community gym and your kid has a basketball game and it's like on the schedule, you know, and the away team in Verona sees that their game is at the senior center, they're gonna be like, what? So it's this idea of like, what should we name it so that people of all ages feel like this is a space to come and connect intergenerationally. Obviously, there are going to be spaces set aside for the seniors and those who are in those programs and need those services, but also they want young people and young families to be in and amongst some of those programs. And so what can we do in the name to try and attract people of all ages to feel like this is a space to come and connect?
Very good. Any other- Thank you, Leanne.
You're
Appreciate that. Moving on to item 6, unfinished business. 6A, the discussion of possible recommendation of the village board regarding the 2026 fee schedules and athletic facility reservations.
All right, so crazy enough, 2025 is coming to an end a lot faster than I would like. So I've been sort of wrapping up the year with the sports orgs. So I made you a little table with the breakdown of what their usage was in 2025. And it's all pretty straightforward and it's all pretty consistent with what it was in 2024 as well. And then we started the discussion last time about what to do going forward. So with your input as well as what I am capable of, I put together like 4 options that we can pick from. We can Frankenstein a whole new option. It's up to you guys, but I figured I would give you a jumping off point.
I do have one suggestion. I have to leave early, parent-teacher conferences, and it was like the last space available. But, and I'm sorry I wasn't here last time.
That's okay.
But I was kind of the Frankensteining.
Yeah.
The various. So, given that we have like the 4 clubs that have considerably more hours reserved, and taking into consideration how much more like exposure and revenue and all of
Right.
that stuff they bring in. If we increase the hourly rate to $3 per hour, up to like 500 hours, and then after that, it would be the flat $2 an hour fee. So it would give us a little more money in the bank, but then it wouldn't be so much of a burden to like raise it across the board, $3 for all the hours reserved. And I don't know how number 3 would play out for $5 per team, $10 per 6. Like, I just don't know how many teams, and so it might be similar to that, but just as another option to like respect the people that have a lot of hours and kind of
Right.
keep it.
No, that's a good idea.
So I just wanted to throw that out there, and I trust y'all are gonna make the best decisions you can, and I have to go on
Bye,
that note.
Jamie.
So thanks, Jamie.
Bye, Jamie.
Thank you.
Bye.
Other comments? Andy?
I don't think going from $2 to $3 would be enough. I mean, at that point, why even change it? I mean, I stated last month and other times that I think it needs to be more. I would shoot more towards 4. If you're going to Highlands and Netherwood or JC Community Park, where you're using these nice manicured places, you should expect to pay more as opposed to sitting in the drainage ditch at High Meadows or
Right.
Norm Champion.
Okay.
I mean, no offense, Eric. I mean, but
No,
that
it's-
turf there
yeah.
is. I mean, it's not the same.
Right,
thing.
okay. So you're thinking like number 4, but with like different dollar amounts? Like,
Significantly different dollar
yeah,
amounts.
okay. That makes sense. Yep.
I mean, because I don't know, like historically, soccer had mowed some of those other lower tiered parks as well. I don't know if they're still doing that or if they're not doing that. I know that they were kind of told not to do that at the two premier parks.
Yeah, so I'm guessing it kind of ties into how the growing season's going, but
Mhm.
like this year, they were definitely probably hitting each one of the parks once during the week. They had asked us first, just because we only have time to typically get to each one of those once a week.
Right, yeah, so it's one of those things where, I mean, if they're putting in time and effort on it themselves, you know, they shouldn't expect much back from the village, so I mean, they should get a discount with that. Highlands and Otherwood and Chase Community Park, I mean, the village staff and Eric and the LTEs, I mean, they're taking care of that. They're, I know soccer is still painting lines, so it's different than, I think, Erica, you guys, your staff was doing all the baseball lines, or what were you doing for baseball?
Yeah, we didn't
and
this year,
softball?
pretty much just grooming the infields
Okay.
and then mowing the grass for them too.
Okay, before and after games?
Not on, if they had weekends, they were doing it all in-house.
Okay.
Yep.
I mean, because going and looking at, you know, 900 hours for softball, less than 1,500 for baseball. I mean, I'm not saying we have to make a lot of money on this, but to bring in less than $5,000 on a $8 to $9 million investment. I mean, you're never gonna make the money back, but that doesn't cover a lot of the costs that staff has to maintain some of this stuff. And that's, I guess that's why it kind of boils back down to, you know, if you're going to a premier facility, you should expect to pay a little bit
Right.
more. And that's, I mean, $2 an hour to take care of these reservations, does that even cover your time to sit and enter these in on a computer? I mean, at that point, then why even do it?
Yeah, I guess just to give you a little bit more background, so at Kaiser, only on special occasions will I go and groom those fields as of right now. As to where JC, every day during baseball season, they're getting, you know, I spend 2 hours there in the morning grooming those fields.
Yeah. Leanne, could you just expand on what number 3 really means?
So number 3 is similar to what DeForest does. So they, rather than charge an hourly rate or, you know, for the facility, they have organizations pay for what it is that they're actually doing. So their teams pay, so theirs is $10 per team per season, and that's what they pay for practices. So if there's 20 teams for the fall soccer season, they just pay $200, and that covers all their practices. And then they pay $10 per 60-minute game window, and then $150 per tournament weekend, and that's 24 hours over a span of 3 days. So if it's like a 12-hour day Saturday, and then 3 hours Friday, 9 hours Sunday, however they want to divvy that up. But they do it that way just based on wear and tear. You know, practices, not so much wear and tear. Game, a little bit more. Tournaments, definitely.
Is that $150 per field, or is that just for the organization?
That we would have to look into. That's a good question. Because honestly, I think it could be per area based on what
Well-
goes on in a tournament.
Well, I mean, I guess I'm just wondering, I mean,
Yeah.
would that be per, you know, you have 4 stickball fields there at Chase Community Park, would that, you know, the whole campus, or is that, you know, you're just reserving that one spot? I mean, because that makes a big difference then, you know, $150 versus $600 for a tournament.
Yeah, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I can't speak to that because I haven't looked at their rate, but that's gotta be by field. I
Yeah, I
don't know
would
how they
imagine
expect to
so.
do anything with that for an organization, so.
Sure. And then I guess follow up on that, did you do, based off of the numbers that you had before, did you do any like comparisons, you know, what the current fee structure is, you know, because 3 is so different
Right.
than everything else. Did you do any comparisons to see like where that would have landed, you know, fees for this current year? or the
No.
previous year?
I have not, but it would be a rather simple transition because when they book, they say for practices
Sure.
this, for game, like they usually say what it is being reserved for.
Right, I mean, because I think that would help
Yeah.
inform and, inform decisions as far as what you could do moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Good questions.
Mm-hmm.
Matt?
Yeah, hi, just a couple of things. So, one, do we know, let's use one example on here for soccer, it's a big sport in town. What is the cost to maintain one soccer field? And we can break it out by premier or not premier.
Okay.
One soccer field for one set of games or practice or whatnot, you know? And I'm asking because I think our fee structure should kind of get after that. And I don't know that going, to Andy's point, from $2 to $3 is, unless it's $3.50 or something to maintain a field, right? Like, so do we know what that is? Sorry.
So I haven't done like a year to date on what it's cost me, but it's something that I could definitely put together. Yeah, there's a lot that goes into that, so in terms of
It's fair,
equipment,
yeah.
and
That's fair, but I mean, just to that point though, too, right? If you're using the soccer field week after week after week, or to your baseball diamond analogy, right? It's 2 hours every Saturday morning, right? Whatever morning, right? So that costs time, right? Equipment, paint, whatever, right? Like all the stuff. So I think our fee structure should be building towards that at some point over time. I'm not saying it has to be at cost or even profitable, but I think $2 or $3 an hour is nominal at best, right? And getting after that. So generally, I'm in support of raising the fee if we can, but to something that makes sense to keep it going. And to the gentleman who talked about pickleball, I think that's a whole different category. Might need to be broken out because the deal you guys got going, which is great. But
It's on here just because it's like it's a calendar thing when I made the table, so that's why you're in the table. It's, yeah.
and then actually to the pickleball point, as long as we're on the fees and that. So to whoever knows this, what is the difference between the community time that's reserved and then making a reservation? If it's community time, am I understanding that to be like anybody can just go play pickleball?
That's
Right.
correct.
Anyone can.
Can I address that?
Yeah, go for it.
It is a point of clarification, and that's exactly right. Community time, community play was
Mike, can you come
intended to have a block of time, like I said, in the morning.
Can you go to Mike, please? Thank you, Mike.
Okay. So community time was intended to have a block of time in the morning and in the evening that it is wide open for anybody in the community. No age limits, no skill limit differences. Everybody can show up. As part of community ed and recreation, Alex supplies the balls, the paddles, and anything else we need out at the courts, so anybody can come in whether they know the game or not. We help them and they play. Now, the difference between that and open play is the courts are available, and as a citizen, you can reserve the courts. The rules were set up that out of the 6 courts, you can reserve the courts for a nominal fee, and the court is yours for you and whoever wants to play on the courts. So the reason we went down the path with community play and expanding it is because if somebody reserved a court during the evening hours, that would take that court out of play for all the for all the community play people. So 4 people could come and they would have that court for a period of 2 hours, no matter how many people were sitting there waiting. So that's why the community play became so important for the citizens of our community, to have it always available so they can come out and play and they know they're gonna get on the court.
That's super helpful for me. This is my second board meeting. All right, so I'm trying to learn. The last one, this came up, and in my head, I'm like, man, it's this pickleball club just basically, like, they own the pickleball court morning and evening every day, right? But if it's just anybody can come, that changed my perspective.
It's
So
wide
thank you.
open. We really just did that so we can stop people from reserving the court and taking courts out of play for the mass of people that are gonna be there playing. Because there would literally be a riot if you came in the evening and we had 40 people waiting and 2 courts were out of play. So we self-govern, we have a system there. You play a game, you come off, all 4 people come off, 4 more people come on, and we keep rotating around. And it's a great social event, it's a great group of people, and that's why we do the community play. That's why Alex and originally Amy sponsored us to do that.
Gotcha. No, thank you, sir. That's super helpful for me. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Nico, I've gone down there many times, and it's a really fun event, and and it's open to everyone. And it would really just be a horrible idea to charge for it.
So,
We agree, thank you.
so Leah, to clarify then, so pickleball open play on here is really pickleball community play.
Correct, yes,
Okay.
yeah.
I have another comment, not about pickleball, so
Okay.
thanks, Mike.
But stay nearby.
Going back to Matt's point, about what's the actual cost of doing this. I mean, we're never gonna make the money. And I know Nico has said this in the past too. I mean, you don't want money to hinder people from using the parks.
100%.
I mean, because there's
yep.
a lot of other things. I mean, at what point do we put a toll booth on a slide or put, you gotta put a quarter in to unlock a swing? I mean,
Exactly.
these things are here for the community, but again, we're also spending infinitely more resources on some of these facilities, so that's why I don't really feel bad about charging a fee.
Right.
But I want the fee to be reasonable, but
I agree.
also worthwhile.
I agree, yep.
Lynn?
Yeah, I feel like we have really two big discussions here, so I'm gonna go to the reservation and then save my thoughts on pickleball, or I can give that later, but my brain can only process one thing at a time, I think. I do really like the idea of at least trying to capture a bit of the cost, because I think when or if this ever goes to the village board or just the community in general, I think being able to say, these are the fees because these are the costs. We know that your time is so valuable and stretched so thin, but a community person who's just trying to reserve a park and sees that fee might be like, I don't get it, right? So I think being able to quantify it a bit really helps. I think number 3 is incredibly confusing. I also think that, like, for instance, my child's soccer team added a team at the very last minute so that the kids could have more playing time. I would really hate for a fee to be in consideration if someone was like, well, we want to have more teams,
Right.
but also then we have to pay more money because the cost is per team. I mean, $5 per team is not really going to change anything, but do you know what I mean? I
Right.
think
But then you have the games. That team has a whole bunch of games too.
Right. So I think that the games part of number 3 makes sense to me, but the $5 per team is really, I don't know. I feel like per play or just an organization based. I just don't think that per team is super equitable in the sense that, like, you're going to have organizations that could have more teams and lower rosters and things like that.
And I
Would it
think
make
that's
it-
why they
Would make
do
it simpler
it.
for Leanne, though, instead of all of a sudden, well, now we need a couple more fields you have to do versus we got another team, so we just have one fee.
Right,
Versus-
but I guess my fear is, like, are organizations going to start to consider teams in terms of the cost
I see.
instead of teams for the roster size?
Speak up, go ahead. That's fine.
Does that make sense?
I think one thing we kind of talked about last time is, like, you were kind of getting at this, like, maybe more of the size of the organization, and maybe it's not exactly like the price per child participating, but there's like brackets. So if you're like 0 to 30 members, you're
Total.
in this, total, and then it's whatever 30 to 100 and 100 to 500 or 500 plus or something like that.
Right.
So there's like buckets. So you're like, you have some flexibility, and it's a little bit simpler to charge, but
Yeah.
it's kind of getting at who's having the most wear and tear on some of these facilities, and
Right.
how do we account for some of that. But I think the games and other things like that, you're already reserving the space for the games, and if they're giving you the details as to what's a practice, what's a game, just doing the math all a little differently. So
Yeah. And then my last little piece is I totally agree that we don't want to make this a cost thing, but I do want to emphasize that this is a reservation of a park. I mean, we're going to let anyone play at a park at any time if you want to. And if you're happy to have your birthday party next to some other random person's birthday party, feel free, right? Like, this is more the idea that we're trying to, like, take a facility and designate it to one specific group of people. And I think that having a cost associated with that is a reasonable ask. So I think we have to really emphasize that we're talking about reservations here, not just usage in that conversation.
Yeah, I mean, you could you could forego the whole reservation thing all season and save yourself a couple $1,000s, but then,
And that would be why soccer's is lower than last year, because aside from Fall Fury and a couple of JC Park reservations coming up, I have nothing on the books for them for fall.
right. You know, but I mean, but, you know, to your point, I mean, the cost incurred for the reservation is more peace of mind, knowing that you're gonna have a space to do it, whereas baseball decides, I don't wanna reserve those, well, then any community member can, you know, snipe the fields and go set a picnic blanket out, you know, during their weekends or whatever.
Nico?
1 second, sorry. I had a train of thought. What was I gonna say? You can go on, sorry, I'll get back to it. My apologies.
Mark, I was gonna say that, I know that instance Leanne shared with a couple examples of like where there was, not a reservation for a multi-use field and there were just community members out there, kids playing, and there was some confusion between a coach saying, hey, we have practice here, and the kids are like, you know, we're out here playing,
Right.
and so there was some confusion with the parents and who, you know, there wasn't actually a reservation on the book, so I think there's definitely a benefit to organizations to do that, but there have been instances where there's been some, you know, multiple
Exactly.
users trying to get on the field at the same time.
And
Some
I do feel
conflict, so.
bad because you know, I think it worked out well for soccer just to not have much on the books. But then you're putting like the volunteer parents who are coaching kind of in an awkward spot. I mean, I get it if like Eric and Randy and Brian were out there, that'd be one thing. But if I'm just a dad coaching my kids' team, I don't know anything other than what I had been told by OSC. And so I feel like it kind of leads to some conflict that isn't necessary.
Mark, can I jump in just real quick? One thing to consider on option 3, I'm totally hearing Lynn, especially as a parent of 2 kids who's doesn't have the brain capacity at the end of a day to really figure out what's going on in any aspect. This is kind of complicated, but one thing to note is part of what's gotten confusing, especially with soccer, is kind of the reservations and then the flipping of reservations. This would almost to some extent eliminate that. Soccer could kind of get what they need and switch around as they need it, and Leanne doesn't have to track, you know, what field is being used and reserved. They're just paying, you know, for the team, and then they can kind of work that out internally. It's also, you know, if you're thinking, I'll just think as kind of like an organization, if you're paying $2 an hour, if you're putting one team on one field, you get 2.5 practices, you exceed that $5 fee. So it's probably a lot more to the benefit of the organizations, I would say. The village would make a lot more money going with just kind of a straight fee, even if we kept it at the current fee schedule, you know, for better or for worse in your considerations. But I'm guessing that the teams and the organizations would probably make out a lot better in that kind of structure, both for flexibility and cost.
I do.
Go ahead, Matt.
So, just trying to boil this down, because this is a complex deal. Why are we not charging a reservation for a piece of dirt, right? And maybe even by sport. It takes X amount to get a baseball field ready. It takes X amount to get a soccer field ready. Different things, right? So why not just a fee per hour for the ground? With the caveat that it will be reserved. And I like your point, Lynn, to that. That's really what they're paying for, is a reservation. I mean, is there a barrier to that once we figure out what the actual cost is? Or that might be simpler and just cleaner all around? Because if soccer wants to reserve 4 or 5 fields, well, that's the fee to reserve it, right? Unless I'm off base, and I'm open to more discussion on it.
I'm not sure I understand your
That's pretty much
proposal.
what it is.
Yeah, I think that's what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
Then I'm
Yeah.
confused at number 3 completely. Like,
So what we have now
field
is,
by hour. or
yeah,
something.
what we have is number 1 right now. That's what's
Correct.
on the books, is $2 an hour for any
Plot.
field, whether it's baseball field,
Exactly.
soccer field, et cetera.
And, oh, sorry, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I was gonna say, yeah, and then the like shelters have a different fee structure, and like the community room has a different fee structure, but this is just the field, the dirt.
And number 3, although confusing, I know DeForest does it that way because they're similar to us where, you know, some organizations have 20,000 kids, others have a group of 50, and so that way, that's how they do it, so that the bigger organizations are paying more and the smaller ones are paying, you know what I mean? Like, that's kind of why they do it that way.
Nico?
It is important that we gather the data for figuring out how this will all work next year, because right now we don't, I mean, we sort of have an idea, but we're not exactly sure how much everything costs. And because of that, just coming up with a random $3 that we're raising it to doesn't really make much sense. So, I mean, for this year it's fine, but I definitely think we should prioritize gathering the data.
Another point, Mark, just a kind of timeline question. So typically we will update our fee schedule, ideally like late December, so that's in effect for the new year. And usually around that time, Leanne's reaching out to organizations, getting some of their reservations on the books. There have been in the past couple organizations that have had special arrangements. So I think last month I talked about how soccer would kind of like overbook, and then they would kind of go back and only be charged for what they actually use. So this year is a little bit different in how that's been set up, because they didn't actually end up reserving like for the fall season, for example. And then the pickleball community play has kind of had this special arrangement where it's somewhat with the school district and the community ed and rec, and then also they've made some in-kind donations for some equipment out there, and that was sort of an understanding that, you know, in lieu of paying for an hourly rate, we're gonna make a contribution, but they are still, I guess that's up for you guys to decide, is that really a reservation or not? But one thing I just want to pass forward is if there are any groups that wanted to request any kind of special arrangement, because this is going to be, ultimately we'll have something in our fee structure, or we'll continue with what we have, and that's adopted by the board, that if anybody wanted to have any kind of exception to that, they would need to come to park board, and then ultimately we'd recommend that to the village board for discussion, and that would have to be approved by the village board to be in effect for next year, for example.
Okay. Judy?
Do we have any of the teams, or was it baseball that's going to Fitchburg and pays like $7,000 a year? Or Brooklyn?
They used to when JC Park was under construction, but I think they're all here now. And I think they have very few in surrounding communities, because, yeah, they don't like to pay their fees.
Yeah, I know.
7,000 was kind of high.
Yeah, I think softball might be in Brooklyn with like the little ones, but
Yeah.
I think mostly everything's moved back to the village.
Lynn?
Okay, I'm gonna spend some time on number 3.
Yes.
So I want to preface this by saying that the only thing I struggle with in number 3 is per team. I just think if we did per organization, does that make sense?
No.
Okay.
I mean, it makes
different
sense,
rate.
but I don't agree with it.
Okay, well, as long as you can understand what I'm saying. Only because I think that organizations are gonna change their teams. Like, they're gonna, like, what happens if last minute they're like, oh, we're adding a team, and now you have to go hunt them back down and be like, hey, I heard you added another 7-year-old soccer team?
It's called honors.
Right,
Yeah.
also that. Also, what if you play a sport that doesn't have a game?
Then you pay $5.
You don't have to pay the any of the game.
There's no tournament.
Okay,
Because we do, like football, for example, like that's all practices, because none of their games are on village property. They're at the high school.
so let's just say that youth football, let's take that as an example. Let's say there are 4 teams. So they're gonna, instead of paying $396, they're gonna pay $20.
Yes, but they do have a lot more than 4 teams.
Well, as an
But,
example.
right, yeah, but yes, exactly.
Hold on, I need to get a little bit. Do they have 79 teams?
No.
No.
Well, I'm
I
trying
mean, like
to.
the National Football League is
Yeah, no, they.
operating.
No, but it's definitely, including tackle, it's up there.
Okay, I'm just thinking like if you use number 3, we don't make as like we don't come even close probably to what we make right now.
And again, keep in mind, we're just throwing out numbers and structures, so if you guys are like, we like the structure of 3, but we think
Sure,
those
sure.
numbers should be higher,
Fair.
everything is on the table,
Fair point,
so.
fair
Yep.
point.
Mm-hmm.
And in fairness, I didn't notice the unlimited practice piece too. I would assume that there's some maintenance overhead with getting a field ready for even practice, right? I mean, so
Mowing.
mowing, yeah.
I mean, you do your normal stuff, but.
Being an engineer, I'd love to have numbers, but we're not gonna have the numbers. This is really the intention
This
to
is an
kind
every
of
year thing,
offset some of
yeah.
this. We are investing quite a bit in the staff to be able to have these resources. I see an imbalance when I'm looking at, don't wanna pick anyone's 48, 72, 84. If it's gonna cost me that to reserve for a party in one of the parks, that's gonna be that or more than that. And I'm only using it for 4 hours, and they're doing it for 36. That doesn't seem like a balance.
Yeah, but
So
the teams are getting money from the children, is that correct? So they're making money. It's not that they're.
We're not sure. That's not for us to determine if they're making money.
There's money coming in, but yeah.
Nico?
Also, all the teams are nonprofits for the most part, so that's just another detail. I mean,
Right.
I'm sure that was assumed, but.
But they, I mean, if you put your kid in a soccer, what do you pay?
I don't remember, no more than $100.
Mm-hmm.
So there's $100 per kid.
Mm-hmm.
So is there a chance that we could take item 3, using that as a basis, try to run some other perspectives on that number?
Yeah.
I think for us to be able to shoot and try to throw numbers together is probably a dangerous point. Lauren's going, yeah.
And maybe we can make an attempt, to kind of quantify some of the maintenance
Yeah.
cost and time for cuts,
Mhm.
so we can come back with that in
Should we-
November.
Yeah, I would
A
have, I
ballpark
would say
punch.
yes.
A ballpark,
'Cause
okay.
I would not
Yeah, it's
wanna
not gonna be
recommend
Yeah.
anything right now.
Yeah.
I would ask if you could almost do it by sport, if that's not too heavy of a lift, right? Because I think it is a little different depending.
Yeah.
If it's too much, too much.
Yeah, at least, I mean, you're not gonna see much difference in what we would do for youth football as to youth soccer, but, you know, soccer and baseball and softball are definitely a difference, yeah.
Maybe like different facility types, like
Yeah.
multi-use field, baseball, yeah.
That would be really good. Okay, we're not gonna make any action on it. Is there anything else the park board would like to comment?
I have one last thing on reservations. Are the reservations public?
Yes, they are. They are on the village website. If you go to how do I find a facility, there's a special calendar and you can see the athletic reservations on there. And then just to kind of go back to, so technically on our current fee schedule, 501c3s don't pay a fee to rent an athletic facility. And that's for like, you know, Girls on the Run or Special Olympics, we'll do like a kickball tournament. So this is our way of, they don't have to pay the full like $10 an hour fee that the general public would have to pay, but yet we do honor that they are 501c3s, but yet they're putting a lot of wear and tear on our facilities. So that's why this is kind of the happy medium, because that's how it's structured right now, if that makes sense.
Okay.
I'm so sorry, but I have to leave early because I have travel ensemble coming up. It's.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, that sounds
I'm
good.
going
We
to
still,
dinner as well.
we still
Sorry.
got 5
It's
of
a
us,
long
we're
meeting.
good.
That's okay, you're good.
Thank you for your input.
Sorry.
Leanne, I wanna just touch back on
Yeah.
that reservation thing. So if I look, say I live next to Norm Champion Park, I look on the village website, I see that nothing is reserved there,
Correct.
and I know soccer's been practicing there on Tuesday nights.
Yep.
I can go out with my kite, sit there, and when they come and say, hey, we have soccer, I have something to show them, like, well, you don't have it reserved.
Correct.
And at that point, I mean, like, again, that's the chance you're taking by not.
Exactly. And my number is on there, so if it does come to that, then just give me a call. But again, that's kind of the hard part because you're probably speaking to a parent who.
And you
know,
probably don't know to look at the village website to see they don't have, I mean.
Exactly,
I mean, I'm
right.
using this as a very extreme
No, I hear you.
example
Yeah.
of a disgruntled neighbor.
It's happened though.
Yeah,
It
right.
has happened. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, very good. Let's move on to item 7. New business. So the 7A, Friends of Oregon Pickleball would like to talk about outdoor lighting, so I welcome you finally.
Yeah. Thank you for sitting through that.
Yes, thank you.
No problem. I'm Jerome Klein, 650 Heidi Way, Oregon resident for 31 years.
I'm still Andy Weiland, 763 Ridgeview Lane, and resident for 26 years. About that.
And I'm just here for moral support for Andy.
No.
He doesn't like to speak in front of groups.
The White House piece kind of gave him away on that one.
So Mike already covered a lot of the background. I do have a handout, because I assume that some of the people on the board probably don't know much about pickleball or aren't that involved or haven't been that involved in what we've done over the last 10 years. So I do have a handout. I'll give it to Peggy so it'll enter into the minutes. Just a couple of points that I wanted to make that weren't already covered. When we first started playing pickleball, which was back in 2015 here in the village, we started on the Oak Street tennis courts. So there was 3 tennis courts, and we came to the village board and the park board, and we started using those courts with dual striping them and portable nets, but they did actually have lights. So there was lights on those tennis courts. Unfortunately, a bad storm one fall took one of the wooden poles down, and then the village public works, for safety reasons and for good measure, took all the light poles down because of they were all similar aged light poles. So, but the point is, we used to have lights back in the day when we first started playing, and then we since have, as the organization has evolved and we became part of the J.C. Park project, we now have dedicated courts. And of course, you guys know where that situation sits right now with the lights on that. The other point I wanted to make is we talked a little bit about donations and contributions. The Friends of Oregon Pickleball has contributed about 28% of the total expenditure of the pickleball complex. So it was $53,000 that we came through with a various number of fundraising initiatives, donor contributions, a lot of different things that we did. We worked at the Summerfest, and we ran tournaments. And so we donated $53,000 up front when the initial construction was put in for the park. And then we added some additional amenities, including sun shelters, wind screens, safety caps over the fencing that we covered out of our fundraising initiatives. So to date, we've contributed about $80,000 of the total $290,000 that have been put into just the pickleball complex since they've been in operation since May of 2023. So with that, I'll turn it over to Andy for the next part of the topic.
Not sure what the next part is, but I guess the one thing I would mention is a question to Eric. How much time do you spend at pickleball on a daily basis?
Right now, not any.
We are self-sustaining. I mean, we put up the windscreens, we take down the windscreens. I think we've asked when the fence is broken or something like that to fix that. But other than that, we pretty much take care of everything. So if you're looking for a partner that's gonna bring things to the table, I think our group has pretty much showed that's what we are able to do. You have a bunch of very motivated people. You have a group that's very multi-generational. That's young kids to old people. So we're not just all old people. And we're doing something that's extremely healthy for our community. If you look at racket sports in general, as a way to stay healthy as you get older, it's a huge thing. And I don't know that you'd have a better bang for the buck for a square footage area of your parks than what pickleball delivers to this community. The number of people in that small area that utilize that area, I really would challenge you to find another place that produces that type of participation in a friendly way that doesn't create any other, hopefully, issues for the village. I guess what we're talking about tonight is what we'd like you to reconsider is the lighting component of it, because we did have that, and at this time of year and in the spring, we'd like to play more outside, but the lights you know, we live in a climate, right, where we lose a lot of sunlight at this time of year, and in the spring, we don't have it as it's growing on. So I've always thought from a finance perspective, if you can engage a group and give them a target, you know, the lighting wouldn't maybe cost the village as much money. And I think what we're trying to convey today is that we're willing participants to help in that regard, whatever that number is, you know, but we sit there at the park and we're playing and we see the standards in the four corners of the pickleball, and we're just kind of scratching our head like, why did we invest the money there if we don't have a path to actually get the lights in the future? So when we've brought this up to the village members, you know, they've basically said, come to the park board and to advocate. And so that's why you see the people behind me today, is because we want to start advocating. Maybe you guys didn't know who we were. We want you to come down and look at the courts, be a part of our group, see what our group does, because I think you'd be seriously impressed. And we're not a group that's, you know, just gonna say, hey, you need to do this for us. We want to be willing partners in that regard. We're willing to put some money into this, as Jerome just mentioned. So with that said, what questions do you have for us?
I don't have a question for you, I have a question for staff. As far, I mean, initially, I had heard a price of $1 million for lighting for the entire park, and then at the last meeting, I thought it got moved closer to the $2 million range. And then I guess, looking at what is the overall cost of the entire park, and then two, if you would know if it would even be feasible to break it down into, you know, ball fields, pickleball, you know, whatever else it would be. I mean, I guess, Andy, what you're looking for is like, what would the cost be if we wanted to do it? And I mean, it really, first, I guess I'm gonna back up 1 second. I mean, I'm gonna say thank you to the group, because between your advocacy and the fundraising that you did, that's why pickleball got moved into phase 1.
Right.
And that's why I was very supportive of that, and I think a lot of the park board was, because it shows that the community wanted this. And, you know, with the amount of money that was raised, it dwarfs percentage-wise what other organizations have, you know, contributed to the park. You know, so that's why, you know, thank you for all the stuff that you guys do. I mean, we wouldn't have the courts without your group, and just trying to figure out how all of this works. But I guess I'll go back to you, Lauren. I mean, what would the cost be? I mean, if that's even known.
So you're absolutely correct on the full park. At least the best estimate from Rutler at the time we were putting together the CIP to complete all of what was originally planned to be phase 3 was $1.8 million, roughly. I do think actually that pickleball may have put together some numbers on pickleball only lighting, or am I imagining that?
We've tried to guess.
Okay.
Pickleball did not. You and I had a conversation back at the beginning of summer, spring, and I think you had talked to Rutler, who came up with a 6-figure cost. And as part of what Andy was also saying is that we would like to engage with Lauren and Rutler to understand the technical side, and to understand the lighting cost, because I think it's a little bit dated on the information and the engineering. If I remember right, I believe back 2 or 3 years ago when we first put the park project together, there was an alternate bid to put the lighting in. And I think that's what Rutler was working on. I just happened to, 2 weeks ago, I went to.
So it's really hard when you listen back to the minutes if you're not on the microphone. If you could, please.
Yeah.
I thought I was loud enough, sorry.
You are loud enough. I don't mean that rudely, but it's just easier to get it for people who are watching and for the minutes, sorry.
All right, no problem. So going back to what I was saying, I think the information may be a little bit dated, we don't know that for sure. But what we would like to do is be able to engage with the staff and take some of the burden off, and maybe engage with Rutler to understand really what the technical specifications are and what we can do out in the community. Again, when you look at what we've contributed, there's more than just money. There potentially could be labor in kind and material in kind. So we have a vast resource network that we may be able to tap into if we had a little bit more information. Also, to be able to work with the lighting manufacturer, I think it's Moscow. They seem to be the standard that's around. We want to be able to engage with them in informal talks, and certainly with as long as the staff knows everything we're doing. We don't want to do anything behind anybody's back, but we want to be able to take some of the burden off and be able to figure out what the cost truly is, so we can potentially move forward with a path. I was just, as just kind of an anecdotal note here, 2 weeks ago, Fitchburg dedicated 4 more courts. They had a ribbon cutting. They added 4 to their 8 courts. The mayor was there, the park board was there, the economic development people were there, and they had nothing but wonderful things to say about why they put in additional courts. Now, we're not here asking for additional courts, even though we'd love to. But where I'm going with this story is that, we'd love another 6, but where I'm going with this story is the 12 courts that are there right now in Fitchburg are in the same position we are. They have the infrastructure in, the conduit, the boxes, the power distribution, the standards for the light. And that night, they were going to get a change order with the mayor's blessing for $148,000 for 12 courts. So we want to be able to get some up-to-date data and look at what's going on and be able to present a plan for the future as to really what we can do and how we can move forward. But I need the blessing of the park, we need the blessing of the park board to engage these people to talk and try to figure things out. And for those of you that don't know me, I'm not just another citizen who's trying to do stuff. My background is technical. I spent my entire career in engineering and project management, so this is not something new to me.
Comments, Lynn?
Sorry, I do have a number for you.
Give it up.
That might be useful. So when I said I forget everything after hours, this is one of them. This was in my inbox. We did get this quote from Rattler earlier this year. So in June, the estimate for just lighting the 6 pickleball courts in today's dollars, they were estimating $85,000 to $95,000, plus adding some for engineering support. My conservative estimate would be somewhere in the $120,000 all-in range.
Okay. Kick 'em out again.
You can also bring up an extra chair.
So, I'm trying to say this. So, J.C. Park East, I generaled. So everything there, I was a part of. I don't know why necessarily we need to talk to Rattler. Musco will do the engineering for the lighting system. That's what they did for J.C. Park East. So I've bought lots of lights from Musco. I think if we just talk to Musco, if that would be okay, then I think we might be able to get a price that works. Maybe a little bit better than that number, if possible. So I don't need to be.
Isn't the lighting the 1.8 million, isn't that for the entire J.C. Park?
Yes, yes,
complex?
yes.
The whole
And then
complex,
the
yes.
subset would be the 100-ish K for pickleball.
Yeah.
So I guess my question would be then, why would the pickleball folks, and you guys are doing awesome stuff in my opinion, but why would you guys engage on lighting for one piece of an overall project and purchase?
So that's the part we're interested
To get
in.
it
Of course, yeah, I got that. I mean, but is there not economy of scale for the entire, deal? If there's
The-
6 lights for pickleball, there's gonna be 20.
I think you add a digit when you get into that. and
Right.
We're not willing to fundraise for the big number, but we'd be
100%.
willing to help with the littler number.
Yeah, tracking that, but if you're gonna engage a vendor to figure it out just for pickleball, wouldn't somebody engage for the entire project, I guess is my point. And pickleball's a subset of that,
money.
Right.
Yeah, and if they're willing to raise a lot of the money,
Okay.
I think it's a good idea.
Well, I think there's a couple of key points. One of the things, the reason we're bringing it up now is because it was in the 10-year capital improvement plan, lighting for the park. I think it was out another year or two, Lauren?
2027, I think.
But then in this last cycle, going through the budget, we noticed that the lighting was taken completely out of the plan. So it's not in the plan anymore for any of the park. So when you look at pickleball, and as Andy said earlier, you look at the demographic of who's playing and the adults and the young adults and the school-age kids, that we're kind of locking them out of playing in the spring and in the fall because the sun sets early. So we looked at this as our little piece, little slice of heaven. How do we get the four light standards in there, get them hooked up and get lights out there so we can play, the working people, the kids can play in the spring and in the fall. And that's why we're just concentrating, those two things. It's out of the plan and we're concentrating on just our piece of the park at this point in time.
Like we were able to in the past.
Lynn, did you have a comment?
Well, I do have a comment, but I've seen a hand up in the back, and I want to make sure that we honor that. If you have a comment or a question before.
I'm Joy Carls, and I play pickleball with in the courts. I'm not retired. I can't play every morning. I play when I can. My husband's working till 5. Lights would be awesome. We're not talking about a baseball game that might be on the weekends or something at night. We're talking 7 days a week people play pickleball of all ages. And it would be awesome to be able to come after work and come and play pickleball and not have to not play because we have to work still.
Yep.
That's my 2 cents to why we might want to start with the pickleball courts.
And I apologize, Mark, as chair, I overstepped you there. My apologies. Okay, my comment, I have 2 questions. Okay, first of all, I'm gonna ask this and it's a genuine question. When you started, Mike, you said we are not a group. We are nothing more than a bank account.
That's correct.
But then I've heard the group wants, so are you a group or are you a bank account?
They're
And
a
I'm
community.
asking that genuinely, like as a genuine question, because I'll get to my point of this question. My point is that, okay, so let's say that we find all of this money and we pay for these lights. If your group isn't reserving these pickleball courts and we're paying for the lighting to happen, that's the bank number that I'm having a hard time with, right? So like you can raise the money, that'd be fantastic. But how do I keep the lights on if there isn't a reservation, if there isn't a group designating to use that and I have to light those without any group contribution? Does that make any sense? And I genuinely am not asking this question to be rude or demeaning in any way. I'm struggling with how do I long-term make this investment worthwhile if
What cost are you worried about? The electricity?
the cost of the electricity and the usage. You're gonna have people on courts in the nighttime. You have neighbors, you have people who are around who kind of expect that those things will get quiet when it gets dark. And if I'm able to say, we have a reservation, this person has asked to use this facility at this specific time, here's the reservation, that's why the lights are on and that's why you're hearing.
But
Pickleball.
I just want to jump in here quick. I mean, I think, but that's also to the point where why the park has hours. I mean, it's sure, when it's dark out, you don't expect things to happen, but then also if baseball and softball had lights, they would extend the time that they would be using that as well. My thought on it is, I'm not overly concerned whether the Friends of Pickleball is an organized group or just a bunch of community members. I mean, to me, I see a bunch of people from the community that want something and that are passionate about it, which is why I would be more inclined to do a lighting project, a segregated lighting project on this, especially if they can, come up with some of the funds, but the overall park hours, I guess, is where I'm not really hung up on it being dark or not.
So my follow-up question to you, Andy, is in your mind, do you see these courts being lit from 5 to 9 every night, regardless of whether there are people, like every single
No.
night for 7 days? So how do I know when I
Yeah.
light the courts or not?
Right.
Well, there's a button, which is
Yeah,
on Oak Street.
like-
You just push the button,
yeah,
and
it's
it's
like
like
a
an hour,
timer.
and then there was a timer that ended at 9.
Yeah.
Sure, but like, so if my family just decided to go play pickleball,
Mhm.
I'd push the button and it would light up,
Mm-hmm.
and then I would push the button to turn it off, and
Yeah,
I
usually
don't
there's
have to
a
have a
timer on it.
reservation.
There was a timer on it, and that, we actually did that at Oak Street, right? And everybody was kind of like, okay, hey, we got 5 minutes, somebody go push the button again, or we're gonna be right in the middle of our game, and it's gonna turn off.
Right,
So-
yeah.
So that's what happened.
Yeah.
The electricity costs, I'd pay for it out of my pocket right now. I mean, we're not talking a lot of money for electricity. It just doesn't cost that much money to light the courts. So I want to kind of reassure you there. The other thing I share with you, because you kind of edged toward the neighbor component, and I just want you to know from our point of view, we spent a lot of time saying that might not be the best location for pickleball courts. And we were told, don't worry about it, it's fine. And so that, there's a part of us that's kind of sensitive to that a little bit,
Sure.
because we were like,
As
hey,
I'm sure the neighbors are as well.
right. But we didn't,
Yeah, you didn't choose
You're
it, I
doing what
get
you
it.
can.
right.
So if I can just go back to your first question, Lynn.
Sorry.
No, I just want to be very clear on this. The Friends of Oregon Pickleball, Oregon Pickleball is a bank account. We are a loose group of people, as you see. I mean, there's a couple hundred of us. We are a group that are very passionate about the sport and trying to keep moving it forward, and it's open to all ages and all skill levels. I think the important designation or the important difference between us and the other groups is that we do not collect funds. We do not have dues, we do not have a membership, we do not have any means of getting, we're not a charitable contribution. We're just a loose group of people that over the years started off on Oak Street, and this thing grew, you know, the old baseball movie, you build it and they will come. Well, we built it and everybody is coming. And so that's how we term ourselves as FOOP, or the Friends of Oregon Pickleball. It's just kind of a designation we've glommed onto so people know who we are and what we're talking about, but it's really just a fundraising group with a bank account.
Okay.
So essentially, you threw a name at it, so you would have just an entity to throw your support behind.
Sort of like the Oregon Nature Alliance, right?
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah.
We channeled our funds the first time through, there was a treasurer on this group that's sitting over there, I think. Was the Oregon Community Action Network or something like that?
Yeah.
We channeled our funds through there to
Right.
get tax deductible contributions at the time. But in this case, if you guys are willing to partner with us, you know, we could channel that through the Village of Oregon or whatever in an activity account or something.
One difference I look at is baseball, at least in the village, has not had lights for the baseball. They had it over at Kaiser, where pickleball had lights. So they did have lights, and they used it extensively, and used it regularly when it was there until they lost them.
But there's nothing saying that no other organization couldn't come forth and say, we would really like lights for this, and here's a way we can help fund it. I commend your group, I commend the community for coming forward and saying, this is something we feel strongly about, and this is what we'd like. And then also, here are some avenues that we have, so. What do we need to do?
Well, I think what we can do is we can take an action that says that we will open it up such that they can work with staff, or staff can verify that if they work directly with the vendor, that the vendor at least is clear, because you don't want to just bring in another do-it-yourself electrician to put in this. And so I'm sure the village would not want somebody else to be pulling wires in there and putting their own switches in and coming up with their spotlights up on the side. So we'd have to verify that the village would be okay with that approach on it. And there's a possibility that we have to also verify with the consultant that we have worked with as well. But I see it as that the action of this park board is to give it a go-ahead on that, so look for a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Judy makes a motion, we have a second?
I'll second that.
And second, do we have any other further discussion in regards to that? Lynn?
I just need to know something before I vote. How does the village staff feel about this in terms of comfort in engaging a specific group for a specific project? And are you nervous about what that precedent might set? I just really want to make sure that I hear from the village's side before I make a vote.
I'll speak for myself, and I'll let Elise, because I think her perspective here is also really valuable, especially since she predates me in kind of this level of heading up a department. I think that this is probably, in my mind, the right way to go about it, to bring this question to the decision makers. I kind of see our role as more of the traditional executive. We enforce what you guys ask us to do, and we work to try to make that happen. So if this is something that that the board would like to pursue, and then the village board would like to pursue, I feel a lot more comfortable with that way of proceeding than I do with trying to make these kinds of decisions at the staff level. That makes me a little bit uncomfortable. And I'll out myself. When Andy said he had a conversation with village members, that was me. So I kind of advised them to come and speak directly to this board, and that's kind of a way that I feel more comfortable moving ahead.
Okay. Yeah, no, I agree. I think the next step could be you're recommending body to village boards, though. We recommend that, staff coordinate with the pickleball loose association of people and look at opportunities. I think another thing to remember here too is, so you referenced the CIP. We have, the village board has adopted that, but we always say it's a living, breathing document, and it's always flexing as we get prices, or maybe something happens and we decide, okay, it doesn't make sense to do this project this year, let's marry it with a project that's next year, or something like that. So while that is, our best guess as to which projects we will tackle next year, there's nothing to say that can't still be amended, and obviously next year too, we will be doing the same process, and just because something isn't in the CIP now doesn't mean, if it gets tacked on, it's in year 11 or whatever, it can all get rearranged. But as we talked about, we're trying to make other investments and achieve other goals in our parks. A lot of our neighborhood parks haven't been touched for a long time. I do agree, this is a high area of use. I think there's a lot of people who would benefit from this type of investment in the pickleball courts, but also I'm sure people would say the same thing about, their neighborhood playgrounds or some of our trails or things like that too. So it's kind of just a matter of who you ask. But I think Lauren's right on that. If you all want to make a recommendation to the village board, that we at least look into it, get some updated pricing, maybe explore opportunities to work with a vendor and make sure that the numbers are kind of lining up, and then we can bring it back to you all with some more information at a future meeting, if the board is okay with that.
I think one last thing I will add is anytime I hear somebody that has expertise and knowledge in an area say, I can do some of that work for you so you don't have to do that work, that makes me very happy. So I'd say part of what I'd emphasize here is I think this group is very, very knowledgeable in this area. Andy in particular has talked about having the experience with this particular vendor, and I am looking at a Musco quote over here. So I think being able to trust that they know what they're talking about and know who they're talking to, and it's something that Eric, Nick, Elise, and we don't have to necessarily do the communication and back and forth. That really helps.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. So we're here to vote. All in favor, state by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. So moved. Very good. Thank you for your spending
Yeah,
your time.
thanks,
and
guys.
your
Thank you.
thoughts.
So just so I just want to close the loop so I understand, we understand. So the next step would be the park makes a recommendation to the village board, and then we move forward from there based on what happens, or do we have the okay to keep moving forward?
Still has to go through the.
Yep,
village.
so the motion they just made is to recommend
To the
that
village
this, move forward to the village board. So I'm not sure we're gonna have time to get it on the November 20th packet that would go out tomorrow,
October.
but October 20th.
October 20th.
Yeah, so
Say,
probably
man, what?
whoa, yeah, I need a lot of lead
Really
time.
fast.
So, probably the first meeting in November, we'll put a memo together and we'll kind of summarize the conversation here, get that in front of the board, and we'll make sure that you guys get a copy of that agenda, but that should be
Okay.
November 3rd. It'll be the first Monday in November, and then if they get the go-ahead, then we can work together with you all on the prices and come back to the park board with that information.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Thank
that-
you, Elise. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
So moving on to 7B, upcoming meeting dates, Tuesday, November 11th and Tuesday, December 9th. Those seem to work out for the park board.
Yeah.
All right, we'll go with those. Item 8, any future meeting
Happens all the time, it's
meeting topics or assignments? One of the things I do continue to ask out is visiting the different parks. There are other parks that are also now been added in to the area, so encourage you to keep looking and being familiar with the parks that are in our community, because lots of really nice ones, and I think there's a large portion of that good to be familiar with, so that we know where they're at when they come about. So keep looking for that, but that's all I do have for you. So running around just for any other announcements or any other comments. Judy, do you have anything?
That's right.
Okay, thank you. Lynn, do you have anything?
No, I've bothered everyone enough.
Matt, thank you for being here. So do you have any questions,
Thank you,
comments?
no, I just want to say thanks to whoever put together the computer with the agenda, super helpful. No, it is. And he told me which button to hit to get in there, so.
That's Peggy. Excellent. Andy?
Nope.
Nothing for me. Then we'll call for an adjournment.
I will move to adjourn.
Andy? Judy seconds. All in favor, state by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. So moved. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
That was a monster. We don't normally.